Good morning, everybody. Danny and Wanda back from Pecan Grove. Here this morning. It is now 10 minutes after 7. April the 18th that we're out here. It's a little cool this morning, about 50 degrees. Nice. Nothing too cold, but just good working weather. No wind blowing. Perfectly clear blue skies. No chemtrails. Hadn't had a chemtrail in probably 6 months. I mean, everything is just really greened up. Clover's all headed up everywhere around here. I mean, it's just turning out. Everything's just doing well. I mean, that red clover is just beautiful. We're trying to leave the patches that we have that's not in with the cows so that it will keep spreading. Once it dries, we'll mow it and blow it all around everywhere. And next year, it just reseeds itself and comes back up. The sweet corn, we've got it laid by. Put the ammonia to it. The Jimmy Red down yonder is already up about, I'm going to say probably about right here, about 2.5, 3 feet high. It's laid by. It's over with. No more plowing on it. The potatoes, I was just walking down the rows. If you'll come like this early in the morning while it's cool, you can just reach down and pick the stink bugs up off the top of the plants. They won't fly. And you can lay them in a row and mash them. That's usually what I do, is come up in the mornings and do a walkthrough. The onions are actually, some of them are doing pretty fair. I'm a little concerned because this coming week is supposed to be 6 to 7 days of rain. Really don't need that on the onions at this point because it'll make them rot. So we've already had to harvest 2. They done broke and fell over, so we know we're right at that crucial point. But me and Wanda this morning, she's been keeping the high tunnel picked on the Lincoln English peas. And she's picked I think you've got a quart shelled out of there so far. Not enough to can yet, but we have them in the freezer. We came up here this morning. Guys, I probably will not plant Lincolns again. We've ran into an aphid issue with the Lincolns that we've never had with the little marbles. We just can't kill them things. I mean, we've tried everything organic that we can think of there, and it's just not working. You know, you sit there and bump the bush and they just fall off on the ground by the hundreds of thousands, crawl right back up on the plant. You know, they say that once you knock them off with a water hose and all that, ain't no truth to that. Them things have been knocked off on the ground so much that it's like a circus ride for them now. So it's
the green aphids, and we've never had green aphids.
Nope, we've never had the green aphids. These are green ones. They're big green ones. You know, probably 1/8 of an inch.
A lot bigger than them tiny white things.
Yeah, they're way bigger than the little small aphids. And they just hundreds of thousands of them. And they've stunted our plants back. But nevertheless, we're starting to get a pick on them this morning. We decided it's our first picking. We're about 1/3 the distance down yonder. Picked already this morning. So let's take a walk down there and let's just look and see how many we've got out of the 1/3 the distance.
Wow.
Wow.
And how big is that bucket? What, a 2-gallon?
Does it say on it?
Well, it would have at some point.
Well, at some point it did, I'm pretty sure. Looks like a 2-gallon pail. Thought maybe it might have a road on it somewhere, but
I'd say 2 gallons, so that's pretty good.
It's about to the top. We could have put a little bit more to get it to the top.
This is the ones on this trellis, and this is the ones we have the issues with. You can come through. I don't know if they're here.
Some of them they are, some of them they're not. I mean, but the further down the road we come, the less issue we were having.
The issues we were having is further, like right there. That section is the worst section. As you come down, they get better. And then when you get to right here,
you get to the cattle panels, it doesn't seem like they're as bad on the cattle panels.
Now this is DE that y'all see.
Yeah, y'all are looking at DE, that's right.
I tried it.
It didn't work.
And this was from Azure Standard DE.
Yeah,
it might have helped, but...
Yeah, food grade DE, it didn't do nothing. I mean, they still fall off by the hundreds.
Well, these don't. On this side, there's not as many. And you can see.
Like right, is this?
Yeah. When it looks like that in the top.
And I'm trying to see if I could get them to bump off in my hand. Look at here. Y'all see what I'm doing right here. I want you to look right here.
Put your hand up somewhere.
Can you get that?
Yep, that's what they look like.
Right there.
You see those evil little things?
We have DE'd the fool out of these plants.
Use soap and water.
Soap, water, cinnamon, garlic.
But when you see them looking funky like this, that's when they're all in there. You can just bump it.
We just bump them out.
It's hitting the tops of them, so that's why they're not growing tall. But now the beans, you can see, and so far it doesn't seem to be hurting the beans too terribly much. They're doing okay, but it's keeping the tops out of them, so they're not going to grow any taller. What we get is what we get. Yeah,
I mean, they're still blooming in the top a little bit. Some probably might make it, but if we'd have had our little marvels, they'd have been up here.
And just hanging.
And just hanging with peas. So the Lincolns we found are a lot more susceptible to the aphids than the little marvels are. And so we probably won't do the Lincolns again. I was thinking about saving them for seeds, some of them, but we probably won't do that. We're probably just going to go back to our little marvels that we've always done.
And y'all see our stools?
Yeah, these are, look, when it comes to picking, you can take these things right here. Man, we can sit down right here. And I mean, it's almost at the really nice height to just sit here and, and just pick. That is, that's what makes these so beneficial. I mean, they are really, really good.
And Danny has one on one side and I have one on the other, and we don't have to come back on these rows.
Crawling on the ground like we usually do, These are mainly what we use in the high tunnel.
But they work in the field.
They do work in the field, that's right. That's right, they do. I'm kind of happy we got them.
Yeah, because my legs and butt wouldn't take sitting on this ground.
Not early in the morning. That's the only time you can pick these things. You got to pick them before the sun gets on them. Well, guys, we finished. 2 hours later. It's 8:44 right now. Took us a few minutes to just sit here and get everything set up. 8:30 is when we about finished. Started at 6:30, went to 8:30. 2 hours to pick one 300-foot row. That's both of us working together. One person would have probably took 4.5 hours. So we ended up with a 5-gallon bucket and probably 1 gallon in the 2-gallon pail here. Maybe a little more than a gallon. So let's just say 6 gallons of unshelled English peas out of a 300-foot row. I think that's pretty good. Now, we didn't nowhere near pick what was on those plants. We only picked the fullest ones. So I'm pretty sure there's another picking of at least 6 gallons again if nothing happens. So if that's the case, we already got 1 quart of shelled ones in the freezer, and whatever this shells out to be, and I think we could probably do it again. So that's going to be a pretty good bit of English peas for us, and that's kind of what we was hoping. We like to try to put up about 65 pints, because 65 pints usually gets us through a year in our English peas. And I believe this year we may come close. I don't know if we'll actually get to that point or not, but we might come close. And if we do, praise the Lord. If we go over it, really praise the Lord. Now, the fun begins. Okay, guys, me and Miss Wanda sitting here talking, and when you have English peas, y'all call them green peas, we call them English peas in the South, because we have field peas and then we have English peas. We got to thinking, what goes really good with English peas, and it's just new potatoes.
And cornbread.
And cornbread from the Danny corn. So, I have no clue. The ones on the end is always your puny ones. Once you get started, that's where your good ones are. Usually right at the end. The first few don't do as well. Look at them things are blooming there. And we ain't nowhere near harvest time. So I am going to dig one of these plants. Now I don't know what's under them.
We're going to steal some potatoes.
I'm going to steal the whole plant on this one because we're right at the end of the row. Let's just pray
For
that there's even a potato under there.
some mini white potatoes to go, or red potatoes.
These
to
are little
go
red
there.
taters.
Oh,
I see
I
something.
see some red taters.
I see little red taters. This will kind of help us to understand too where we're at in the tater crop.
They're not very big, but I need
Tell you what, that's exactly what you want for English peas right there, though.
Yep.
Look
So
at
I need
that.
2 plants at least. That'll make enough for us. A
Look
meal.
at that, boy. Look at that, Miss Wanda.
Yep. Lay them aside. That one will cook.
It'll cook.
That'll
All right,
cook.
looks like a marble. All right, let's get that one out of there.
All right. It's not big.
Let's get us another.
Not take 3 plants.
It might, because
That's not.
like I told you, the ones on the ends of the rows are usually your puny ones. You don't get your good taters till you get on down in the crop.
Well, we leaving the rest of the taters.
Yeah.
I just want some to cook with English peas for lunch or supper. Or... Oh, okay. Look at that.
Look at that.
I might not need a whole bunch of.
Look at that.
That's a nice potato. Look at there.
Look at that.
Now we talking. That's about enough to have
We talking
English
about-
peas, and
We talking about taters now.
make sure they ain't any more.
You make sure I ain't nothing else in this ground here. Look at that. Stick that shovel that deep in the ground.
Yeah.
I'll say we go one more plant before we get to the big pretty
Well,
one.
them 2 little ones together. Because one of them ain't going to make much, I'm sure.
May not even be nothing under it. So let's just,
No.
that's the reason I say let's just go ahead and get it. Because the tater's laying right on top of the ground.
Yeah, just one potato.
One little old tater. See that one? They ain't no needing it sitting there drawing nutrients from the other one. So,
So we have enough to make English peas and potatoes. And what you say we do a pork chop?
well, let's do this right here. There's one on the end of this row.
What you say we do a pork chop with this and some cornbread?
pork chop, cornbread. You talking about
Country living.
country living now? Let's look at here. Let's just see. Might not be nothing, but that's what I'm saying. These little ones on the end like this, they don't usually make that much. So there's no need really leaving them. Because what happens is you run out of fertilizer right here. So you want to stay back here where your fertilizer is. These plants are a lot healthier. They probably got another, what is this, the 18th?
Up into May.
We got a late start this year on potatoes. We probably got about 3 week late start.
Sometime middle of May.
Yeah, so it'll be the middle of May. Yeah. And if we've already got one this big,
You know there's some big potatoes
when you get out there
somewhere.
where them plants is really big and healthy at. And plus,
The last one's down there maybe the end of May.
yeah, because we got 2 different, we planted them in 2 different successions here.
Those
Because
last
we
ones are
don't want to have to harvest them all at one time. So we got 140 foot a row of one time, and then we got 200 feet of another planting. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of taters before it's over. So time to go get busy.
Oh, that sky's beautiful behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, we got some clouds moving in. Rain's supposed to be starting Monday, I think they said. So we got a little bit of cloud cover coming in early out of the Gulf. No chemtrails though.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's nice.
Nice peas.
Aren't those nice?
And I'm having to get all the blooms out. But look at this.
Look at that.
I mean,
Look at the size of those things.
nice.
You've already shelled out how many?
This pan full and half again of shelled peas.
So we're looking at a good canner full.
2 canners.
2 canners full.
Yeah, probably. Pretty
Awesome.
close. So that's going to be really great. But you see how big those peas are.
Look at that.
Just nice.
We've never grown the Lincoln before, but we've always been used to the little marvels.
But they compare, I guess, in size.
Yeah, they compare in size.
Shell, decent. Seems like the hull is a heavier, thicker hull.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
So that's one of them, but overall the peas seem fine. I'm cooking some for supper, so we'll see on taste. Alright guys, we're inside. I've got this one pan full of shelled peas and this one half. I'm going to be washing these peas and getting them ready to go into the canner. And we have those few potatoes that we're going to cook with a few English peas for supper and make some cornbread. But y'all, it took me over 5 hours to shell 6 gallons of peas. And I probably have right at 2 gallons of shelled peas if I put them in gallon bags. But we're going to can them and see how many pints we get. I'm going to be using the Presto electric canner. And so I've turned it on and I hit the button for pressure can and I put it at 40 minutes for English peas in pints. And I've got insert jars. I put 3 quarts of water, then I put water in the jars. I added the lid. We're going to take and put this down, and this is your safety feature. When you put this weight on, it'll tell you later to put this weight on. It's a regulator. It'll tell you when to put this on. It should be off right now. This should be down. So we're going to hit 1 time and it says warm. So it's going to warm the jars and then it'll tell me to pack the jars. So while we're waiting on it to warm my jars up, we're going to wash English peas. The English peas were washed before I started shelling, which meant I washed dirt off, any of the DE and that kind of stuff. I washed off before I started shelling. As I was picking, if I saw any blooms or leaves or anything like that, I went ahead and took those out too. Now see, there's a piece of a leaf. That is what I'm looking for. I do not want that in my English peas, in my jar, because that'll tend to float. Right here you see a bloom. I'm taking that out. I do not want blooms. And then on the side you can see right here these T90 little peas that when you're shelling, you don't want those either. I usually skim those out when I've got them in the water. So you're just going to just clean them and put them in here. And you just check to make sure you have clean peas. That's all there is to cleaning English peas. It's just taking out like a leaf. See that leaf? Now you may not get all the trash, but you'll get 90% of it. The canner says fill jars, so I'm going to be taking the jars out one at a time, pouring the water out of them. Do not pour the water that's in the jar back into the canner. Put it in the sink. You only leave the 3 quarts of water that you poured in the base of the canner in there. What's in the jar goes down the sink. I've got my tongs here. Where my tongs is. All right, half a teaspoon of salt in here in a pipe, 1 teaspoon of salt in a quart. These are my fresh, cleaned peas. We are raw packing. You can blanch these for a couple of minutes and then put them in here if you want. But I'm doing the raw pack. I always do the raw pack. And I try to bump them down. They settle just a little. They don't settle much when you do that. You can put some water in there and then fill. I have water over here that's hot. It was on the boiling thing and I just turned it down to keep it hot. We're just going to add water till we get to this line right here. debubble a little bit, and that will push the peas further down in there. In that water. And we have the water up to this mark, and that gets the peas down in there. And we're just going to cap it. Alright, once you've gotten your peas and your water and your salt in the jar, a wet cloth with water or vinegar, your preference. Wipe down the top really well. Take a flat and a ring and put it on. Hand tight. Do not tighten any tighter. And then, look at there. Going in the canner. Alright, 8 pints. Isn't that beautiful? So I've got 8 in here. We're going to put the lid on and head to the next process. Okay. Lock the lid into place. This has to show locked. This comes down, twist, and lays in there. You do not want to hide this. This has got to fit there. This has got to be free to pop up. You still leave the regulator off. It still says fill jars. We're going to hit it one time. Now it's in the heat mode. It is heating the vegetables and the jar. And from this point on, you'll wait until it clicks. You'll hear it beep, and it will say put on regulator. This is the regulator. This is what they will say when it says put on regulator. I know someone's going to ask how I cook English peas. So, I put about a cup of English peas in here. I've cut my potatoes up and dumping them in there. I added salt and bacon grease. I'm going to let this cook till the peas and the potatoes are tender, and that's it. I'm going to be baking some cornbread in a few minutes, and I was going to fry pork chops, but we have a pork roast already done. It's been going on 9 hours now of doing English peas, and I'm tired, so he's getting pork roast. The canner goes into vent mode for 10 minutes. It's at the 6-minute mark counting down. At that point, steam is rising up out of this. And at the time the vent goes down to 0, it will tell you to put the regulator on, but it will beep. Alright, it says put regulator on. This is what we're going to do. You see the locked button? Up on top it also has the word can. Right there. You want the arrow pointing at the can. And you push it that way and make sure this is at the can mark. On each side it says vent. You do not want to keep venting. You want it on can. Alright, so since it's right here in line with this, we're going to come down here and stop the beeping. And you can see it says put regulator on. We're going to hit it one time. And we're canning for 40 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure. And now I have to do nothing. It will go for 40 minutes once it builds up pressure. Now, to build up pressure, this thing has to pop up. So once it pops up, that means it's built up pressure and you won't see the steam anymore. And then the clock will click down 40 minutes. Then it will turn around and cool down. And once it cools, it will release the locked mechanism and then you can open it. You cannot open it till it cools down. And if this continues to do this, then you've done something wrong, because see, once it pops up, you cannot open this now. It's in a permanent locked position. This is no longer shooting out any steam, and it's quiet, and it's canning. So now this will start counting down 40 minutes, And you're done till it releases and tells you to open the canner. All right, the 40 minutes is up. It just beeped. It is in cooling mode, and this is still up. Until that goes down, you cannot open it. So it will be in cooling mode for at least 30 minutes to an hour.
Well, guys, Miss Wanda done fixed us up some good old victuals here. We got the new potatoes here, the fresh English peas, nice old roast, and some good old homemade Danny cornbread.
I was too tired to make pork chops.
Oh. You know what? Those English peas has infused those potatoes.
They taste sweet.
The potatoes taste like English peas.
Good.
Let's see here. Now this is the Lincoln English peas. Boy. You know what though? What I'm noticing is these didn't cook all the pieces. These are holding their shape really good. These new potatoes. See, you didn't skin them.
Nope.
The skin is like, it's like paper.
Yeah, as long as they're fresh.
And they're not red.
You leave. They were red when I put them in there.
I know, but the color went away.
Yeah.
Look at that. Man.
That's some good stuff, Papa.
Mm-hmm.
What about your cornbread?
And cornbread?
Did I do okay with your Danny corn?
Let's see here. See if we... Now... Do I detect bacon grease in that?
You do.
Yeah, you can tell it.
Gives it that extra added flavor, don't it?
Yeah. And it's moist. Wow. Can't beat that. Guys, I wish y'all could just really taste this with me. But I know it's not possible right now. So I'm going to just go ahead and finish indulging in this magnificent food here. And Miss Wanda's got, it looks like she got about 8 pints in the canner right now. And what do you got, about 8 more to go?
Maybe close.
Close to 8 more to go. So that's like 16 pints at the first picking. All we need is 4 more pickings. And we'll reach our quota, I think.
At least 3.
We should get, well, if the aphids will leave us alone long enough and the weather will hold off and it'll get a little rain.
That's a lot of ifs.
Well, I'm a believer though. I think it can happen. Thank you guys for Pecan Grove.